Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and Making It Personal is provided by Sarah Vocations Ministry. Learn more at joinserra.org.
Making It Personal with Bishop William Joensen on Iowa Catholic Radio and iowacatholicradio.com.
Welcome to Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen. I'm Jeanne Thill, and on today's show, we're visiting with Emily Welch Smith. She's the Director of Philanthropy for the Central Iowa Shelter and Services, known as CISS.
So here we are, savoring these days of ordinary time. Not far away is Ash Wednesday and the season of Lent, the penitential time. Hopefully people won't amplify their need to do penance. Tomorrow, Super Sunday, and that I've got to be careful even if I use phrases, right, that might have proprietary claim on them. But, we've got the New England Patriots and the Seattle Seahawks. I can't say that I'm passionate about either team. I'm going to focus more on college basketball. It kind of helps us get through a long winter.
Well, the Seahawks beat the 49ers, so if you're going to get beat, you want to get beat by the Super Bowl champions.
Yes.
Right?
There you go.
That's how I determine who I'm rooting for.
So who your
Very
fans
scientific.
are. Yeah, and again, we wish well to Mark Geisler, employee of the Diocese of Des Moines, who brought his faith to bear. Yes, he helped the physical operations of the buildings and the plants to go smoothly, but it was his witness and his irrepressible joy that tug on his heart to return to his native California, to be an advocate and champion. I think as we look to this segment with Emily Welch Smith, for those who are particularly vulnerable, and Mark has kind of heeded that call on his heart. And so we wish him well. We were going to miss him. He leaves a big gap. We know that God will supply in these ways. I myself was focusing a little bit on issues, my passion to the ministry of the church in regard to healthcare and bioethics. So every other year, the National Catholic Bioethics Center sponsors a workshop for bishops down in Texas. And this past week was an enriching opportunity for me. The theme, mental health, spiritual health, and the ministry of the church. And so there were numerous segments about the status of mental health, Christian models of engaging those and serving the health needs of the clergy. Ministering with persons and their families experiencing autism was a really instructive segment as well. And loneliness and isolation in children, the technology impact. I think we're all apprised of that. The role of cannabis and its impact on mental health and other things that are in the determination of death. So they always have a robust program, but a chance to really pose questions and that. And so I come back refreshed. Also, my role on the doctrine committee for the U.S. bishops, and so things that we're looking at are very enriching.
Bishop, since I've gotten to know you, I'm pleased that I know. Mark me off that list. I'm good now. But you don't think of your bishops, at least growing up, that they have all this wisdom and knowledge, and that they don't have to ever be refreshed or, it's like, no, you need to go to retreats just like we do. You need to have that quiet time. You need to go back to classes and learn new, what's happening new. And so it's like, it's having not known a bishop, Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen, right? I didn't know that you did that so much, and you do that for your ministry. And
it's always a balance. You want to be present to the people here, but these other moments where you are enhancing your capacity to be for people, to guide and shepherd when you know what's going on in the world, what's going on in our culture, and bringing the rigor of science and the medical field to bear upon things as we continue to discover more about the truth of the human person and all that's there. And so the church says it's an expert in humanity. Doesn't mean that we get terminal degrees in all the fields, and nor are we just simply relying on infused knowledge from the Holy Spirit. We do this in according to the human mode. And so, again, grateful to the good people at National Catholic Bioethics Center, as well as other pulpits. And then, we bring this to bear, in a higher education setting. But then as we approach the World Day of the Sick, the February 11th, we'll talk a little bit more about that in our closing segment. But to be with the community at the Bishop Drum to celebrate the Mass for them here on Tuesday of this coming week. And then to be with another segment, the students, college students, at the invitation of Father Mark Murphy and Paul Lee, former state deputy for the Knights of Columbus, with the Panthers at UNI and the St. Stephen the Witness Student Center. So we'll be with them, particularly looking to connect with our own Diocese of Des Moines, young people and adults, and see where's the Spirit been leading them and how is their faith coming ever more alive.
We're going to take a quick break. When we return, we'll be visiting with Emily Welch Smith, Director of Philanthropy for Central Iowa Shelter and Services. You're listening to Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen on the Iowa Catholic Radio Network and the Spirit Catholic Radio Network. Welcome back to Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen. On today's show, we're visiting with Emily Welch Smith. She's the Director of Philanthropy for Central Iowa Shelter and Services. We often call that CISS.
Indeed.
Yes.
So that acronym is familiar to lots of folks in Central Iowa. Ms. Welch Smith, Emily, thank you for being with us, and pleased to make your acquaintance even through the medium of radio and all that we're about here. So on this show, Making It Personal, here we are in the most acute phases of an Iowa winter, very conscious of that. And for persons of faith, that call always to be neighbor, to heed the call of Matthew 25, and to look at those who are hurting or suffering, who need shelter, who need clothing, to clothe the naked. More first, I guess, your own life path that has led you to be, in some ways, a public face of CISS. And where does this resonate well with your own passions, your own soul?
So I have always been called to serve and help those that are in need. That actually led me to being in fundraising, which is what I'm doing here at Central Iowa Shelter and Services. I have been in the industry for about 10 years. The mission of CISS just really spoke to me when I was looking to transition into a new position. Being able to just walk down the hallway and see the impact of the work that I'm doing, get to know the people that we're serving, and see the work firsthand is so rewarding. And I truly believe that the work that we're doing is absolutely indispensable to the people in the community.
Wonderful. Had you had a hand in the for-profit world or always in the not-for-profit arena?
I have dabbled in the for-profit world, but it was also nonprofit focused. So I was in consulting for a little while, and then I was also in a position where it was a leadership recruitment firm specifically for nonprofits. So I've always been in and around it, whether that's in a for-profit setting or the nonprofit setting itself.
Okay, wonderful. Now, Central Iowa Shelter and Services, you can be schooling me and maybe some of our listeners. There was a faith component to its founding, not exclusively in that regard. And how now is it an entity in its own right? How is it in relationship with perhaps city, county, or other organizations to derive its support and to help amplify its mission?
Actually, so as you said, we were founded by a collective of churches who basically had a couple vans, and they would drive around, pick up people who were experiencing homelessness and, let them sleep in their church basements. And from there, that ultimately developed into what people know today as CISS, so a separate entity, but we still keep very close connections with those founding churches as well as other churches in the general area who come and serve at our organization all the time, actually. And, things that we do here, it's not just, giving people emergency shelter. We provide job training. We have a 3,200 square foot greenhouse. We're working towards building an agri-hood to help with the food insecurity that's in downtown Des Moines. We've got a community clothing closet, community food pantry. We have lunch that's open to the public every single day, and we're doing a lot here.
It sounds like it.
Emily, I have a question. So these the churches or groups that come in and helps with a meal, explain that. Do they provide the food for 100 people or 200 people? They stay and serve and clean up. Is that kind of the scope of that work?
Kind of. So some churches will provide and serve. Others will just come in and serve. Mm-hmm. It sort of depends on, what they're able to do or want to do. And, they come in for one of our services. It's usually lunch or dinner that they come in because breakfast is pretty early. They help with the actual service aspect of it, get to, see our clients face to face. And it's actually one of our volunteer opportunities that people find exceptionally rewarding. And, we're always looking for people to come in and, and serve and, provide if they can, especially as food costs are on the rise for everybody, including us. And, it's a really great opportunity to give back to the community and see the impact of your work at the same time.
Well, if folks want to find out how they can volunteer, they could go to centraliowashelter.org, right? Is that the best place?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, that's the best place. There is a How to Get Involved tab and volunteers right under there, and it will take you to our page for volunteering, and you can get all set up right there.
And so just so people have a sense of the on-ramp, is there an extensive vetting process for volunteers, or how does that work?
Yeah, not extensive. There is a, survey that we have volunteers fill out. We do some background checks depending on what it is that you're doing. If you are going to be working directly with our clients, that's something that we want to check out just because, we are serving a really vulnerable population, and we're really cognizant of that. That said, we generally don't have issues with people that are signing up to volunteer. So it's a pretty simple process. We are working on creating a more formal onboarding just so people know what to expect when they come into the building and, work with us and expectation setting and all of that. But, we have been running this volunteer program for a while, and so it's a little bit like clockwork over here.
Yeah.
Nice, you got your system in place. So
Yeah.
So those who are doing census of homelessness in the central Iowa region, it is ticking upward, sadly, and the economic and other situations that have conspired to do this as well. Could we kind of expose and kind of lay out? The dynamics are challenging sometimes for folks who maybe even the secure shelter, a warm place, does not always instill peace in them or attract them in this way. How much is factors of mental illness, sociability, relating to others in close quarters? How much are these things impinging upon your population?
Yeah, so I believe the last I looked at our numbers, approximately 85% of the people that come into our shelter actually have a mental illness or other disability, whether that's physical or mental. So that is a really big problem. That stems from other factors in healthcare and things like that, and stigma against things like mental health. But one of the things we do is that we do an intake process and we identify those barriers that they have, and our whole goal is to empower them to get back on their feet, sort of through their own work, but we are the helping hand that is there to help them find health care or even, get health insurance, find a job, find housing, and, hold their hand essentially as they go through that process, and, really have the ability to take control of what's going on in their lives, because when you are experiencing homelessness, there's a lot that you don't have control over. And, that can be really dehumanizing, and that's something that we want to give back to those people that we serve is, you are a person, you have your own agency, and we want to help you get there on your own.
So, Emily, with the bitter cold we've had over the last couple of weeks, how has that impacted? I mean, is there enough shelter for the folks that need to come in, or are you finding a lot of folks are still staying in their makeshift homes?
Or sleeping in over grates or things like that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, so we are an official warming center here in Des Moines, so that means that DART buses will bring people here for free to have a warm place to be. We're in what's called weather amnesty, so that means we are accepting more individuals than we normally would based on our capacity. We have cots to deal with increased numbers. Our staff is increased as well. So, we want to make sure that anybody who needs a safe, warm place to be has that, and be that place that people can come to. And not only that, when you come in during Weather Amnesty, you still do get the services that we provide with our case managers, our client advocates, and you go through that intake process still, and we try to help people get that process started while they're here as well. So our numbers have increased. We haven't seen it increase quite as much as we anticipated, but we are seeing in the upper hundreds generally, especially during these really, really cold times when we're in Weather Amnesty.
The folks that I encounter in the vicinity of St. Ambrose Cathedral in particular, and the kind of corridor that leads to Connections Cafe and everything else, some would not be maybe immediately receptive, but if there's an ability to encourage that, and that again, possible medical referrals are given right away as well. You talk about helping people to claim their dignity and become their own agents of their own life in a way. Do you have those glimmers of hope that you see people now who have kind of reinserted themselves as active participants in society? And maybe with that, I know one of the services is an empowerment command center, which is intriguing to me. So
Yeah.
Could you just expose that for us?
Yeah, so our Empowerment Command Center is actually where all of our client advocates work out of. And that is, again, it follows that idea that we want to empower people to claim their lives back. And, we kind of follow a formula of, motivation plus the energy that you're willing to put in equals the solution, the outcome that you want to come to. And part of that is also the support that we provide. That really is the basis of what we're doing. If you're willing to put in the energy, you have that motivation and drive to get there, we help you along the way. Ultimately, you're the one that's getting yourself back on your feet and into society again. So we're not creating a dependency. And at our Empowerment Command Center, we do things like we help people sign up for SNAP EBT. We help people create resumes, prepare for interviews, get in contact with health care that they need. We help them if there's legal issues. If they need identifying documents, we'll help them through that process of getting those. So really what we try to be here is a one-stop shop, and the Empowerment Command Center is sort of the heart and soul of that.
And is that tied in then also? A certain segment of your cohort would be veterans who are there. Is that something that's integrated with all of this?
Yeah, anybody who is in our shelter, we encourage to go to the Empowerment Command Center, work with our client advocates, and that does include our veterans as well. So, they have the same access to all of these services as everybody else in our shelter.
Wonderful. Emily, how does CISS work with the other nonprofits that offer similar services? We recently had some St. Vincent de Paul folks on to talk about what they offer. How do you guys all work together?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do have different partnerships throughout the community. I think some of our biggest ones actually are a way to spread the wealth in a way, and though that might not be in physical dollars, we receive a lot of donations, which is great. We have a very giving community that we're in, which is we're so grateful for. But we're connected to other organizations that if we have too much, if we have an abundance, like for example of clothing, we can share that with other organizations that also have clothing closets that need it. Our partnerships with other organizations, we have a really close partnership with Iowa Total Care, who come and help at the shelter all the time. And again, that is one of the ways that we're able to connect with healthcare as well. So we try to be really integrated with the community and work together, because when we work together, we are stronger than if we try to do everything on our own.
Excellent.
Wonderful. Well, the great solidarity that you exhibit, and Emily Welch Smith, thank you for really the witness that you all give to your team together to elevate our sense of being a community and the human condition, that light breaks in so many ways, and the warmth of human friendship and love. So blessings upon all that you're about in your mission, and may it continue to flourish, and may listeners continue to support it by prayer and by material means.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, and thank you for having me.
We're going to take a quick break, but in between, go online and check out centraliowashelter.org to see all of the services that they provide to our community. You're listening to Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen on the Iowa Catholic Radio Network and the Spirit Catholic Radio Network. Welcome back to Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen.
Really appreciate Emily Welch Smith and her shining a light on what all the Central Iowa services and the shelter that's provided. We know as a people of faith that we want to continue to be open, and the arms of Christ extending out to our neighbors. The World Day of the Sick is coming up this Wednesday, the 11th, our Feast of Our Lady of Lourdes. I was thinking a couple weeks ago, I was traveling and connecting with some people out east, including Monsignor Joe Tracy, a friend of mine in the Archdiocese of Philadelphia, and on a bitterly cold day, and we went into the Cathedral St. Peter and Paul there in downtown Philadelphia. The church was largely unoccupied. We could pray at the shrine of St. Catherine Drexel. But then as, priests, we kind of wandered back to the crypt and everything else. And we're making our way down and heard some rustling there in the crypt in the dark. Not quite sure, whether there's some critters down there or what is it. And so I had my phone flashlight on, and it was a homeless man who had found a niche there, a peaceable fellow. I just said, hey, I'm here just to see the crypt. And so, kind of blessing him in the process, but a place where kind of refuge that he had found. And I think it was kind of a symbol to me of who we need to be as a church. Our physical spaces, obviously, we're not unlimited in our capacity to host people. Certainly, I encourage our people who are maybe out on the streets around the cathedral to make their way. Hopefully, the respect is mutual for that sacred space, but to come to Mass as well and be sheltered.
Bishop, it's personally that challenges me. I mean, I was a single woman for years. I can contribute financially to shelters or St. Vincent and take my clothes, and, it's like to help someone personally scared the bejeebies out of me. And it's like, but then I feel guilty. It's like, well, I could offer a couple of
we do a number
dollars
on ourselves.
We do. And it's like, how do we balance that? How do we help others? Do we just need to get over our own, insecurities?
Well, and I think, we are simple as doves and prudent and cunning as serpents. We need to have our wits about us, and as a woman, I think that would impinge upon how you're engaging. And is there a evangelical wisdom in going out 2 by 2, that when you're really in this mode of you want to cross paths with and encounter those you can serve, can you do that in a paired way so that you're not, your own vulnerabilities aren't on display and driving the dynamic of that? But, there are those other chance moments. And so maybe to be more protective, but is there always, as with anything, I may not be able to respond in the way that this person is demanding right now, but what am I being intentional about? What's my plan to meet a need in some form? Because the needs are infinite. And the poor we always have with us. Jesus anticipated that, but we can do that. So I know what you're saying, Jeanne. There are moments, either whether because of the demands, I don't want to be the Pharisee passing on the road, because, hey, I got to be somewhere, and I have a ministerial commitment or something else. But, we do know there are times where we cross over to the other side so that we avoid those encounters. And, we don't want that to be a defining habit. I was not quite clear, actually, with our Holy Father, Pope Leo, this 34th World Day of the Sick. He says it's going to be solemnly celebrated in Chiclayo, Peru on the 11th. I was like, is the Holy Father making another pilgrimage trip that I didn't hear about or not? But centering in that diocese where he was the shepherd for many years. So he says in that message, we can affirm with St. Augustine, the Lord did not intend to show us who that man's neighbor was, but he should become a neighbor. No one is truly a neighbor until they freely draw near to another. Thus, the one who became a neighbor was the one who showed mercy. It's not passive. It's not determined by physical or social proximity, but by the decision to love. And in this way, that social dimension that comes forward. And he, in his own experience as a missionary and bishop in Peru, witnessed those who show mercy and compassion in the spirit of the Samaritan and others. And so I think he's animating it to be one in the one, the way in which then we show those manifestation of love, setting aside our own base self-esteem or sense of dignity based on worldly stereotypes, but simply being ourselves face to face.
Well, this has been another edition of Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen. Thanks to our guest and to all of our listeners in Iowa or Minnesota or Wisconsin or wherever you may be, to the Iowa Catholic Radio Network and the Spirit Catholic Radio Network.
You can hear Making It Personal with Bishop William Joensen every week on Iowa Catholic Radio and iowacatholicradio.com.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and Making It Personal is provided by Sarah Vocations Ministry. Learn more at joinserra.org.